All right.
I'm thinking.
All right. Are we ready?
Ready, set, go.
We're done here.
Okay, just checking. All right, we'll call to order the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners meeting for Wednesday, September 5th, 2018. We could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please, Bonnie.
Johnson,
Here.
Klaus,
Here.
Wheelock,
Absolutely.
Gorfulet. Here. Mayor,
Here.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Crawford.
Here. Next, we have approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of August 15th, 2018.
So move.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Wheelock. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. Now is our chance for first public comment. Bonnie, will you read the rules, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized, and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson. Please be respectful and refrain from personal or political attacks.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody for first public comment today? Anybody at all? A bunch of heads saying no. Okay. We will move on to the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything to add or remove from the agenda today? No? Anybody from administration or, no? Okay. Do we have a
Motion to approve the agenda?
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Mayer. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. The consent calendar. Bonnie, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. 1, Northwestern Regional Airport Commission minutes of June 26. 2, Northern Lakes Community Mental Health minutes of July 19th. 3, Building Authority, Lafreniere and Woodmere Deficit Elimination Plan approval. B, approvals. Number 1, Resource Recovery Material Recycling Facility Designation Agreements. Number 2, amended L 4029. Number 3, intergovernmental agreements to manage floodplain development for Whitewater and Acme.
Okay, does anybody have anything they would like discussed elsewhere? Dan?
B3.
B3. Anybody else? Sure.
B1.
B1.
Can we get an explanation of A33, please?
Do we want to pull it or just have an explanation?
We can pull it. and
Right,
then
let's go ahead and
Dean will
pull it.
explain it to us again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody from administration? Anybody from the public, like anything pulled and discussed elsewhere? Okay, do we have a motion?
Move to accept the consent calendar with the exception of A3, B1, and B3.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Klaus, sorry. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We will move on to the items that we've just removed from the consent calendar. Let's start with A3. Dean?
Yeah, Dean,
That
can you
is-
explain, I'm trying to figure out why we have a deficit in those 2 accounts.
Well, we have a deficit because we paid the bonds off early, and in doing that, our two building authority funds had deficits. We had discussed that with the state, but to make a long story short, we had to come up with a plan to show the state how those deficits would be eliminated, which the board approved. This is official notification, a letter from the Department of Treasury that they've accepted your plan. We're basically paying that deficit down based on the required annual payments back to the building authority.
We paid the bonds off early, and then we're
Which
just paying
created
it
a
back to our-
deficit.
Created a deficit. We're paying it back to ourselves, basically.
Correct. But the building authority is a separate legal entity. The county general fund is making the required payments, and the state is okay. This is their notice that they accepted your plan.
You know, I would have
Just
thought
thought
that
you
all-
should see
I would
that
have
it
thought
was
that would have all
approved.
been approved when we paid off the bonds and we set up the deficit plan, but,
Well, the accounting rules changed over
okay.
a
Thank you.
period of time.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve B3.
A3?
Or A3, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Gorfulet. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to B1, Resource Recovery Material Recycling. Remove that one.
Me?
Yeah, Cheryl.
Okay, so in reading through this, is there any money involved in this? Does anybody make money off of this? No. So the people who recycle it, they don't sell what we give them and make money off of it, or? Why would they do it? I'm just curious, what's the quid pro quo for this contract?
So it is, the quid pro quo is that by entering into this agreement, then they're allowed to come into the county, pick up recyclables and transport goods. So it's a requirement of our ordinance. It's under ordinance 17, where you'll find a requirement that a recycling facility has to have this agreement.
Okay, but in answer to my question, they're not just picking this up out of the goodness of their heart, they're then recycling these products and selling them for money.
Correct.
Okay, so they get our stuff and they get money for our stuff, and what we get is, we get it out of here. I think that's a good trade. I just am trying to make sure I understand what the quid pro quo is. Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, the solid waste plan requires that haulers and facilities that take waste of any form be authorized through an intergovernmental agreement
Sure.
with the county.
Right.
You know, so, and that's why we've talked about the haulers licensing
No,
and the
ad
$25 a year.
nauseam.
Which to me, the $25 a year is not worth the effort that we spend trying to track those things. And I'm pretty confident there's a lot of haulers, particularly landscape and yard waste people, that are not licensed haulers in our county that are continuing to do business here without paying the $25. So I've made the argument for a number of years that we should eliminate that licensing. The problem is, it's required by ordinance 17, our solid waste plan.
Unless we redo that, and we've talked about how onerous it would be to
Right.
redo that. So
It's-
this is
it's
all
a-
deja
it's a
vu. I
big-
just wanted to
Yeah.
close the loop.
Okay.
So.
Tom?
He knocked on the booth when Chris was speaking. I think he might want your microphone closer to you.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Should we say that all over again, Cheryl?
No, I think we're good.
I think we have a couple times.
I think we're okay. Do we have a motion for this one?
I would move that we approve B1.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Klaus. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. B3, Dan?
First of all, I want to say I'm not against this, I'm just trying to understand it. It sounds to me like we're having our building department enforce the wetland, the distances from which you build something near the wetland. I understand those are state decided, it's not just someone who thinks it's a wetland, the state decides it's a wetland, am I correct?
Yeah, it's really not a wetland, it's a floodplain. So this
Okay.
is a FEMA mandated plan that FEMA wants local units of government to have a plan in place on how they deal with floodplains. So part of that requirement is the local unit needs to show how they are doing building inspections in areas considered floodplains under their floodplain plans. So all this really is to show FEMA that the townships through our construction codes county, or construction codes department has regulations dealing with buildings and floodplains. And this is work that Bruce Vermey and his staff are already doing.
Okay, so this is, does Whitewater and Acme have, are we just renewing this, or is this the first time they asked for it?
This, I understand this is the first time they're asking for this.
Okay, and have we done this with other townships?
Yes.
Okay, and what does it cost us to do this for
Nothing.
townships?
Nothing, because Bruce and his staff, they're already doing this.
Okay,
So it's not additional work.
okay. So, I make the motion that we accept and pass B3.
Do we have all of the other townships covered?
Do we have a second for that?
Support.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Lathrop and supported by Commissioner Johnson. Now, Sunny.
The question is, do we have the other townships all covered? Because all of them have some floodplain jurisdiction within their
Yeah,
communities.
that's correct.
And I guess what I would like to see us move toward is being consistent with that. If we have an intergovernmental agreement with Acme and Whitewater, we should have one with Long Lake and Green Lake and Blair and all the rest, because all of our townships have some floodplain designation.
Yeah, we're moving towards that goal, and all the intergovernmental agreements that I've seen are exactly the same. It's a standard agreement that everybody's using.
Well, I think it's a boilerplate that's been put out by FEMA that everybody has to have in
Yeah.
place, pretty much.
Dan?
So, who wrote that intergovernmental agreement, the particular one that's in our packet? Is that something you wrote, Chris?
It's not something I wrote. I'm not sure exactly, Dr. Lathrop. Off the top of my head, I think it was the Township Association who
Okay.
came up with the,
And it's something you looked over and it's, okay. Okay.
Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our departmental items. We have the county treasurer. There she is. Performance resolution for MDOT permit application. Heidi.
Support.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Bartolet, supported by Commissioner Johnson. Now Heidi.
So we have to put in a traffic signal at US 31 and Rennie School Road. I've applied for the MDOT permit, and MDOT is requiring this resolution from the board.
Any questions, concerns?
I would ask in normal layman's term, what does this really say, but
Well,
Boilerplate,
the thing about it is
liability,
the
boilerplate.
land bank sale of the property to Blaine Farm and Fleet required the installation of the traffic light.
Yep.
The preliminary studies all showed it, it was all approved, and, you know, as I've said for a number of years, I don't understand why they took it out, because MDOT had the light there during the whole
During the
construction of
construction,
Crescent
yep.
Shores, or at Chum's Corners, and then they took it out, and now they're making us jump through a million hoops to put it back. And $120,000 or some stupid ass thing.
beep, where's the?
We are not on a delay.
I'm way past the meeting.
Yeah, I
I
know.
think so.
All right.
Anything else on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
May I just say something?
Yes,
Commissioners,
absolutely.
Heidi, our treasurer, has worked a lot on this project, and like I said, well beyond the scope of her duties, reviewing plans and speaking with the Road Commission and DOT, trying to figure her way through this entire process. It's been extremely taxing for her and interesting, hopefully educational. That's
All
the
I
only
ever wanted to
benefit.
know about traffic signals.
Which you probably never wanted to know.
Yeah, the,
Hey, maybe you can get a job working for the college, getting a light in
Yeah.
over there where they turn into campus.
Oh, they-
A left turn lane.
the engineering specs for the light alone, I think, was 130 pages, so silly stuff. But I thank you for working on it. Hopefully we get it installed.
Yep,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. Okay. Sheriff's Office, request to hire an additional Garfield Township Community Police Officer.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Johnson. Captain Clark?
Good evening.
That's your cue that we've read it.
You read, oh?
Well,
I gotta seize my opportunity to talk.
okay.
Has that stopped
Feel
you
free to
before?
talk, you just don't have to have PowerPoint.
Almost got
But he needs some props. Goes better with props.
There we go.
There we go.
There's two of them.
Okay. Start off, we've been speaking with Garfield Township for a couple years now, and historically, the sheriff's office requests 1 to 5 deputies per year. And this year, one of our requests was an additional community police officer into Garfield Township. As you all know, using 2000 to 2016, the population's increased by about 15,000 in the county, by almost 2,400 in Garfield Township. The personnel at the sheriff's office from 2003 to 2017 have decreased by 2. That's certified officers. Our calls for service from 2003 to 2017, close to double, not quite. And our call volume based by county is 80% is Garfield County.
Oh, he wants that mic closer to your face.
Oh,
Yeah,
yep,
he's
talk
not
right
gonna-
into it. Put it up a little further.
Bring it up,
It
too.
doesn't pick up your voice unless it's really right there. Okay, thank you.
We looked at our statistics and saw what types of crimes we were responding to in Garfield Township last year, and you can see a majority of them were assaults. That's 835 hours spent investigating assaults. Next biggest after that is retail fraud, and then your larcenies. 2015 through 2017 crime hours using those same crimes. You can see that in 2015 we had a slight increase in retail frauds. And then last year we had a drastic increase in assaults. Currently we have 12 Garfield-funded officers or positions. That includes Lieutenant Barchef that supervises. In addition to handling 300 to 500 complaints each year, they also do all these things on the side that assist with the community, crime reduction, active shooter presentations, working with the schools. So, any questions?
Okay, Cheryl?
I don't think you can answer this tonight, but I'd be interested in seeing comparative statistics with the city of Traverse City, because I think that the city of Traverse City and Garfield Township have a comparable population and a comparable mix of retail and establishments that would generate a lot of the larceny, theft, assaultive crimes. I don't want anybody out there thinking that Garfield Township, which is where I live, is a crime-infested, assault-ridden community. It's not. It's a peace-loving community full of, wonderful people. But we also happen to be the site of the malls and restaurants and bars and lots of establishments. And so I think for comparative purposes, it would be really insightful if we could compare the city of Traverse City's statistics to Garfield Township.
We could compare calls for service and to agree crimes. But a couple years ago, the sheriff had an idea and thought it was responsible for us to actually track the time that we spend. So we have a totally different program than the city does, so that we can show what time is spent in investigations and in training and in
Sure.
maintenance. So
Sure.
that time we wouldn't be able to get, but the other stuff. But
If it's not too onerous, I think it would be interesting and might be, might give us some insight.
we receive just over 80,000 in revenue for each township position that we have. So that revenue would be an additional revenue for 2019 for that additional position.
Super.
But the 80,000 does not cover full actual cost of that officer.
Per the contract, the
Per
county's.
our contract and
Right.
with this board's, blessings on that contract, so.
Per the contract, the county's responsible for vehicle, equipment, and support staff.
But the county benefits from that too.
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
Most
if you
definitely.
really look into it, they respond everywhere, not just in the townships that they serve,
Yep.
so.
It also allows the officers to split the overtime. They can become involved in specialty activities such as dive team, ERT, accident investigation. It spreads out that responsibility by quite a bit.
And as you look at more and more activities that are happening here in the summer and whatnot that require more officers just for a presence, that's increasing. We got that Ironman coming and who knows what that's gonna bring, so you can do the Ironman?
superheroes. It's gonna bring in superheroes.
Dan, and then Tom.
Okay. What's your secret to your great hamburgers? He was cooking at the sheriff's cook-off, and he was cooking the hamburgers. They were the best I've ever had, so you should share it with us.
Gordon's.
Oh, you missed your opportunity.
I really do have a question, though. I'm going to vote for this. So I just want to ask, make it clear to the public, this is a collaboration between township and county. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the township pays about $80K for this officer, and we pay for the other incidentals. About what do we pay per officer? Does someone know? Ballpark.
That has been a long discussion. It's dating back to Mr. Benda. There was a lot of effort focused on trying to find out a true cost, including overhead and every little cost, but it's roughly 80%, depending on what you want to include in that. If you want to include Mr. Bott's time and the administrator's time and the lights, and it's more than that.
So
About $3,000 is what we pay of county money toward that office.
80/20. I'm saying 20%. So if you say it's roughly $100,000, maybe a
Yeah.
little more than that, those numbers have ranged anywhere from $104,000 to $140,000, depending on which
Yeah.
model you use.
Okay, I just want a
Yeah.
ballpark figure. I want the public to understand
Yeah.
that it's a collaboration, and we're paying some of the tab.
And may I add one thing? This is for, the contract rate of $80,183 is roughly for the wages and benefits of a 4-year deputy. The officer, there will be a recognition of a little better deal for the county early on because you're hiring a brand-new officer.
Right.
So the county is receiving a little better deal the initial 3 years than what they would after the 4th.
It's just the way we should be spending our money.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom?
Oh, I was just wondering, at the Garfield Township Hall, do they have enough space there to, because
Mr. Korn?
Lieutenant
Supervisor
Barshef
Korn?
says yes.
yeah?
Okay.
Gonna take over Chuck's office.
Any other questions before I turn it over to Mr. Korn?
Okay. Mr. Korn, welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your consideration. I think this is a great example of a interlocal agreement that benefits everyone. It's a win-win situation. We've been very happy with the relationship. In particular, with the last few years, Lieutenant Barshef has taken a proactive approach to policing, which we find very refreshing. For face-to-face time between police officers and citizens when it's not an emergency. So they're working with some of our supportive housing centers, which require a lot of attention, and they've reduced the number of calls by doing that. Just simply having a picnic and inviting all the residents so that they get to know that the police are there to help them, that they're their friends. There's a lot of statistics, and I think we're not even sure when the last time we added an officer was. Sometime between 2002 and 2011. But there's been a tremendous amount of growth in the township, and I think it would serve us all well as the surrounding communities, to have the additional support. And they don't spend much time in the office, so the office is not a big problem.
Anybody have any questions for Supervisor Korn? Yes, Tom?
Well, I don't know if Supervisor Korn knows the answer or not, but I'm just curious, do the state police patrol in Garfield Township?
They do somewhat.
No.
Not a,
How do people organize that with the sheriff's department as to who's on when, so?
they are on the state highways for the most part.
Okay.
Although we do have a state policeman who lives in the township, so
All right.
he's exposed a little more to the local roads. And it's typically who's ever nearest and available, I think, responds to a call. Whether it's
That's how it's
state-
done?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at times, the Garfield officers, the CPOs have responded in the city and arrived at the scene before the city officers.
Mhm.
So it is it's not about territory, it's not about silos, it's about response and getting things done. And I believe the city has roughly 30 officers. So for us to expand.
For comparison between the city and the township? Yeah.
To expand from 13 to 14 is, I think, a very modest proposal.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have the sheriff. Does the sheriff has anything to say? Do you have anything to add, Sheriff?
No.
Okay, just checking.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have under sheriff classification. Now the sheriff would like to speak. Oh.
Sorry,
He's giving Nate the evil eye.
still can't do anything right.
You're just doomed.
That's why we got rid of you.
Okay, people.
Let's keep it civil.
You should hear what he says about you.
Oh, my, all
I
right.
don't know why that one.
Okay, thank you.
I hope we're not supposed to
Good
read
evening,
that.
Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County
No.
Sheriff. I'm here tonight to address the classification and compensation for the under-sheriff's position at the sheriff's office. During our application and review process to select a new under-sheriff, we've discovered that there's a severe deficiency in the compensation between the highest-ranking supervisors in the sheriff's office, which would be a captain, and the under-sheriff's position. And I'll get to the specifics in a few minutes. We feel that this must be addressed prior to proceeding with the selection. We're seeking to realign the undersheriff's compensation sufficiently above the level of the highest command officers so that it's fair and equitable to that position and in line with the responsibilities that go with the authority that are attached with the job of undersheriff. In reviewing the undersheriff job description for the primary duties and responsibility, there needs to be a lot more emphasis placed on some of those primary duties and responsibilities. First of all, the job description of, quote, implementing labor agreements goes well beyond that statement. The undersheriff serves as the initial point of contact for the sheriff's office for all of the sheriff's office labor relations matters, including representing the sheriff's office for labor negotiations with the 5 bargaining units at the sheriff's office. This includes representing the sheriff's office on the county bargaining team and working with the county administrator and human resources director on labor relations strategy, and he attends all of the county board of commissioners closed sessions regarding the sheriff's office labor negotiations. The undersheriff is the initial point of contact for all sheriff's office employee relations and works collaboratively with the county human resources director to ensure that all policies and procedures are followed and that matters are handled appropriately and consistently. Simply put, the undersheriff is the human resources director for the sheriff's office, covering all 125 employees. This responsibility includes being acutely aware of all legal and contractual obligations to include short and long-term disability, FMLA, EEOC compliance, and consultation with legal representation so that we comply with all state and federal rules and regulations and with the sheriff's office contractual agreements with 5 bargaining units. I've often said that our biggest asset are the employees who work for the sheriff's office, and our biggest liability are the employees who work for the sheriff's office. Dealing with employees at times can be very complicated and requires very careful and thoughtful deliberation, and sometimes consultation with labor attorneys, so that any decision dealing with discipline or possible discharge is handled so as not to violate any policies, procedures, contractual obligations, and most important, that they are done honestly and fairly. Unfortunately, on occasion, the sheriff's office is sued. Sometimes the lawsuits are extremely long and complicated, as evidenced by the recent closure after 10.5 years, with a financial settlement to end, without any wrongdoing, a very contentious legal fight. The undersheriff manages the entire litigation process for the sheriff's office, which includes pre-litigation research, working with the county's insurance company and attorneys to provide background information, policy and procedure clarification, and providing input on strategy and resolutions. The undersheriff is also responsible for serving in an on-call capacity for any issue that may occur. This includes activation of the emergency response team, major criminal investigations, and any major incidents that would involve the sheriff's office, and he also is on a rotational weekly on-call for the jail with the jail administrator and assistant jail administrator. In the absence of the sheriff, the undersheriff assumes all responsibilities for the sheriff's office and may be responsible for making decisions of a large magnitude, which may have far-reaching implications and legal ramifications. A handful of the 125 employees at the sheriff's office are not represented by a bargaining unit. For those employees, which includes the undersheriff, the county's 9-page classification and compensation plan, as last amended, as best as I can determine, in December of 2003, 15 years ago, is used to determine salaries. Conversely, the lieutenants and captains bargaining unit, representing the highest level of command personnel outside of the undersheriff and sheriff, has the ability to bargain or negotiate salaries, wages, and fringe benefits with the opportunity for Act 312 binding arbitration. Two completely different means of determining salaries. The lieutenants and captains bargain for their salary, and the undersheriff's salary is established by the county administrator and the county board of commissioners. Next slide, please. And next slide. Next slide. If you can see this, it shows the following, which has occurred in the past 15 years because of the two separate and distinct methods of determining the salary for lieutenants, captains, and the undersheriff. In 2005, using just the maximum undersheriff salary and the negotiated salary for a captain, the undersheriff salary was 11.3% above that of a captain. That continued through 2009. Progressively over the next 14 years, that 11.3% has been reduced to 4.1% in 2017. Salaries for the captain's position in 2018 and 19 are currently in negotiation between the captain's bargaining unit and the county. The undersheriff's salary is the same in 2018 as it was in 2015. Using what has been talked about in negotiations with various sheriff's office bargaining units, and with some knowledge of possible adjustments to the county's non-contract employees, which would include the undersheriff, and without disclosing those figures, I do have them if you want them, it is possible that in 2018, the undersheriff's salary will be 2% more than a captain, and rebounding to 2.5% over a captain's salary in 2019. The current non-contract exempt employees pay scale has the undersheriff's classification as M. Go down
Can't
toward
see
the
it.
bottom.
We can't see a thing.
We can't
Yeah,
see it.
it's really hard to
Okay.
see.
It's hard to see.
Okay,
It's right here.
okay.
Classification is an M. And that salary is $83,000 $338, which was established in 2015 and is the same today. There's an M2 classification, and reclassifying the undersheriff's position from an M to an M2 would increase the undersheriff's salary 11%. That reclassification would return the salary to an increase over the captain's almost 0.3% less, as it was 10 years ago. Using the talked about possible salary increases for the captains and non-contract county employees, what's the bottom line? The increased cost to the county in moving the undersheriff's classification from the M to the M2 scale would be an annual increase of $7,107. So in conclusion, I would request that the board reclassify the undersheriff's position using the non-contract exempt employee pay scale from an M to an M2.
Dan?
Question.
Oh, okay.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Lathrop, supported by Commissioner Wheelock. Yes.
Is the undersheriff a straight salary, or do they get paid by the hour?
Salary.
Okay. And the captains, are they
Salary.
salary too? Okay. Have you had a lot of issues, because I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, with that pay only being that little different? Have you had any issues with anyone saying they would like to be an undersheriff with all that added responsibility for only a few $1,000s more?
Within the office, within our personnel at the sheriff's office, yes, but there's a few other things involved with that. It has to do with changing maybe somebody from the defined benefit program to the defined contribution plan. And outside of the office, I really can't say because I don't know.
And have
So
you,
the answer is probably yes in both instances, but I can't say for sure.
have you looked, and I know we've done this with other positions, elected positions, but is there an average in the state for undersheriff or?
I do have that information. I don't have it with me. The Michigan Sheriff's Association does an annual sheriff's compensation package, and I've looked at that, and it's kind of the same.
The problem you have with that too is it doesn't include the cost of living. It's not cheap to live here, you know.
Right. So I do have that information. They make all kinds of all kinds of comparisons.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, Cheryl?
So, I mean, I'm not a math wizard, but you had talked about from M to M2 would be an 11% increase?
Yes.
And 11% of 83.3 is actually 91.63, not 7,000?
That's the difference, okay?
The difference between the captain, but that wouldn't be...
Well, I'm using what is talked about in, but
Sure.
not signed on what increase, some of these non-contract people. So it's not the 80, I'm not using the 83 number.
It's not
I got a
11%.
slide
It's
I
not-
can show you.
It's not 11% of 83.3.
It's 11%.
It's not an 11%
It's more
increase of
than- yes.
83? It's more than that?
Don't use the 83.3.
Okay. Well,
I'm talking about moving forward. If captains and lieutenants get a percentage in 2018 and a percentage in 19, and the undersheriff gets a percentage in 2019, that's where I'm getting the 71.
And so where does that put you in comparison to the undersheriff?
I'm above that. I don't know. Right now, I can't tell you what the salary is honestly, but I would be included in the non-contract. It's above the undersheriff. And don't think that I'm coming back in a month or so saying, if you pass this resolution, I need more also.
Well,
That's not my plan.
But I guess what
We
I'm saying
can't
is,
anyway.
from my perspective, you can't have the sheriff making $2,000 more than the undersheriff.
No, he's
So
making
that's-
more
No,
than that,
it's
but
not.
No, but you get my point.
Yeah, well, but this is a valid concern and a valid issue. When just like when we were trying to fill the administrator position, is you've got to look at this, and if it goes unchecked over a number of years, that gap closes where the roles and responsibilities are so much greater, in one position versus another, that you won't have people come into it.
And that's
Well-
what has happened
Yeah.
here.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not supportive of what you're asking, but you've given us a significant amount of information of which I can't read any of it. I can't process any of it. I'd really like an opportunity to look at these figures and look at what you're
Yeah, to see
asking us
that.
to do. And I'd be real happy to talk about this at our next meeting, but I just don't feel comfortable making a decision based on stuff I mean, I can't see it. I
Okay.
can't read it.
That's possible, and thank you very much. A couple of things. I wanted you to hear this information from me first, okay? And not put all this information in your package.
Right.
Because somebody would be calling you yesterday, asking you about this, and you don't have any information, okay?
Right.
So it's not that I didn't want to give it to you.
Okay.
I could provide it in handouts, and I'm happy to give that to you.
Okay.
My point in doing it this way is,
Sure.
you need to hear this first from me
Absolutely.
before somebody calls and said, hey, I see this is on the agenda, what do you think?
Right.
So,
No,
not a problem at all.
I respect that, and I guess I'm just, I think that it's part of what we've been talking about, I think, as far as compensation and what we're gonna do with compensation. And we keep nibbling at the edges of this, and we're heading into a contract year here. October, I think, is supposed to be new contract talk, or moving toward a new contract, budget, I should say, new budget. And it just, gosh, I hate doing this nibble, bit, piece stuff. I mean, can we get some sort of a recommendation from the administration on the whole thing? I mean, if we reclassify one person, I mean, I guess my question to the sheriff is, do you have a candidate for undersheriff right now that you want to hire, and you need to do this now in order to facilitate that?
No,
Okay.
but this has come up, and so we're about a
Yep.
month behind in this process.
Okay.
So.
So if we did this in 2 weeks.
We're
it's-
functioning okay
If we
at
did
this
this in 2
point.
weeks, it's not, if we did this in 2 weeks rather than tonight, it's not going to,
No.
the world isn't going to stop spinning on its axis or anything.
No.
Okay.
And that's fine, and I completely understand. I have the information prepared, and
Yeah, I mean, it
Get
is
to
hard
you.
to see that up there on the.
Let's go with Dan
Yeah.
and then Sunny.
Just wondered,
And then Tom.
Nate, you're our administrator now, what do you think? Do you agree with his analysis?
Gee, what do you
Because
think?
he
Well-
just said the administrator or the board is the one that decides this. Have you given this some thought?
Well, the Board of Commissioners decides this through a
Okay.
process of discussions for what the non-contract elected, or salaried and non-contract hourly employees receive annually. The undersheriff has no bargaining rights, there's no bargaining authority, so the county board sets the overall rate of pay and wage scales for both of those units, including the elected officials.
Do you think it's too much, too little, what?
I think the discussions that the sheriff is, there's reason for everything he's saying. I think it's a good rational argument. I think that, as I'm sitting here, I saw something I'd like to look into a little bit and maybe discuss with the sheriff as well, but it's been I understand the argument. And I think it's within the realm of reason that you have to have, in a line of authority, you have to have people who make decisions above you should make more than you make.
You know, do you want me to withdraw my motion? Would that make you guys, can I do that? Should I do
Or we
that?
can take it.
Can I ask a
Well,
Nate
let's
another
hang on
question?
for a second.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Let's go with Sunny and Tom, and then we'll come back to Sunny.
I guess what we really have come down to here is the discussion that an ongoing discussion we've been having for basically the last 2.5 years, in that we have a lot of people who haven't seen pay increases since 2014, the 2015 budget, some of them older than that, you know. We've got the bargaining units that have gotten raises, but non-contract salaried employees haven't seen any raises for a long time. Out of what they were getting, they're now paying 20% of their health insurance plus paying in money into, depending on their defined benefit program, they can be having to pay money into that too. So, we've got people that are non-contract personnel that are taking home less money today than they were 5 years ago, and I think that's a significant problem, and we've been talking about that, and Cheryl's absolutely right. We're kind of nibbling away at the edges. It's not an apple that we can really get a big bite out of, and it's difficult to try to figure out how you would do it across the board. We tried that a few years ago. We did a wage and salary compensation study, and flawed as it may have been, the fact was what it came back and showed us very overwhelmingly is that the people that were significantly underpaid were our supervisors. It wasn't our line workers, it was our supervisors and people in positions of authority. We've talked about the 312 arbitration. I've made the comment many times that the sergeants aren't going to settle until the deputies settle because they want a percentage higher than the deputies are making, and the lieutenants want it higher than the sergeants are making, and the captains want it, So it's very difficult. It's just kind of a domino effect, but we're kind of at that tipping point. We got to get the sergeants and get the deputies to settle, and then we should be able to settle all three of them, or who knows, Well, that's the discussion we've had along the way. But, I think it's very legitimate discussion. The sheriff is in a unique situation. He's trying to replace a very qualified undersheriff that did a great job for a long time. Probably wasn't told often enough how good a job he did. But, otherwise, I think, all of us have recognized that, the sheriff recognized that, and, obviously, those of us on this board recognize what he did in order to consider the appointment that he has now. But the fact is, the undersheriff probably has been an underpaid position for a long time. So, we can't fix that from 5 years ago, but we can fix that moving forward as we replace that person. And, the sheriff and I have had the discussion, I'm pretty sure he's not going to continue to be sheriff for the next 40 years. So, the idea of a chain of command and succession, if we can find the right person in the undersheriff position, we'll have a qualified sheriff for a long time, but difficult to do that when the position truly is underpaid.
Let's go with Tom, and then we'll come back to some, okay? Tom?
Well, from my college, university experience, I would say a spread of 10 to 15% would be necessary just to attract people who want to do the promotion or the promotion from within. Otherwise, it's not really fair to solicit the job if you're not going to have a spread like that. Or to move from one position to another, even if you're in or out of the organization. 15% I think is often what people are hoping for if they're going to make a move like that. And it would be nice to see what it would cost the county to look at every department in the budget process for 2019, to see what it would cost to bring everybody up to a point where they are not making less than they made just recently. That would be interesting to see what that number is. But doing it one at a time is just a little bit, hard to look at, like, where Cheryl's coming from. One person at a time, considering that, one person, one raise at a time. We have about 500 employees, and most of them are not union, right? I mean,
Most of them are.
most of them are, actually?
Two-thirds of them are.
Most of them
Yeah.
are.
Two-thirds of them are, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it might be closer to half, but okay. Two-thirds of them are union, and then the other third needs to be recognized. And I think at budget time for 2019, that would be a good time to examine that, just to see how much it costs before making any promises. In your case, you need to replace somebody right away. So I would be comfortable with a minimum of 10, but up to 15% spread from the captain's amount.
Well,
Okay.
just In the lieutenants and the captains are in the same bargaining unit, and for 15 or a very, maybe 20 years, there's been a 15% increase from the lieutenant's salary to the captain. That's been in the contract for almost 20 years. So,
Okay.
back to your spread, that's what it is there.
So Cheryl and then Dan, okay? Yeah.
So, I don't want to beat it to death, but I mean, we had an elected official here asking for a raise. That would be the soil erosion guy. That'd be Steve Largent. So he was advocating that we give him a raise, and now we're under sheriff, And so the point being that this one is maybe 11%. So let's say we approve this reclassification for an 11% bump. How do we then say to all of the other people in the organization, you get 1%, or you get 1.5%? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, and I'm not saying that we can't do it, but I'm just saying, these are the real conversations that we have to have. If like Sunny has pointed out, we have people making less money than they made 5 years ago, you're gonna get 1%, but we're gonna give this person 11%. We just have to be, I think we have to be transparent about this, and we have to be thoughtful about how can we move the organization forward and be equitable.
Yeah, respond to that?
Yes,
You
and
have. The board took a position, they engaged Labor Council, and they've taken a position on a strategy of negotiation over the last year to 2 years. This board has changed that strategy ever so slightly, and without getting into the details about what that strategy is for the contract negotiations that we're engaged in currently, and the contract negotiations that we will reopen in September and October, we're going through that process now. So the board has the right to make these changes, but we have to go through the negotiation.
No, but that's with the union. I'm talking about the non-union people.
The same essential process should take place with the board, and you have spoken, we know what you're looking at. Anything we do with non-union may impact our negotiations, both in arbitration and just straight out wage reopeners. So we have a plan. Our attorney has laid out a scheme for us and a schedule of events. We're trying to follow that, but you have made some changes in your position that will benefit people.
Dan?
Well, I am, I agree with all you say, but I also am concerned about the immediacy of filling this position. Somehow I think it's a little different than some other positions, and so I'm open to doing a one-time decision. I don't mind withdrawing my motion so we can consider it a couple of weeks, but I don't want to say it frightens me that the position's not filled, but I think it's an important position to fill. And what I think I'm hearing is it's going to be hard to attract somebody unless we compensate it at least as good as it was 20 years ago, which it isn't now.
Statutorily, the position has to be filled. The statute's silent on essentially when that position has to be filled, but if something happens to the sheriff, you're putting, I think, the clerk, the prosecutor, and a probate judge in a real precarious position at that point.
I didn't know that, so it has to be filled.
The statute, you have to have an
So
undersheriff.
that's not necessarily so for other department heads.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Dean, can you make comment on this? Are you interested in making comment about the financial implications of this?
I would echo what Nate had said initially. Because the undersheriff is currently in the non-contract exempt group, we have to be careful how we approach this. I think we can step back. The sheriff is telling you that, this is obviously a position that needs to be filled, but we can take a little more time to determine what we're going to do here. Financially, as Nate said, we are addressing the groups that have not had a wage increase since basically December 31st, 2015, and we're moving very slow, but we are moving forward. So I think we should step back. Nate will discuss this with the sheriff, and you'll see it. We won't forget about it, that's for sure, so. But I do think we need to step back and maybe check some numbers with the sheriff.
Yeah, I guess in my head, if you could come back with scenarios for 10, 12.5, and 15%, so we would know what the budget implication is on that. And like you say, though, what other implication will that have across the spectrum for leadership? You know, is that compensation plan just specifically for the undersheriff, or does it cover other supervisors within the county? So.
Well, you know what's going to happen with that. There will be a lot of requests, but there has to be, as long as there's strong rationale, which I think there is rationale for the position, you can fall back on that, and I think most people will understand that question.
You're not going to fill that position with those added responsibilities with, right now, a $3,000 difference, and could possibly be less. There's no way. Unless somebody just really wants it. Nate must have really loved it. That's all I got to say.
He's been there a long time. You know, and Nate's an absolute example, though. He'd been in that position for a long time, and while those around him were seeing pay increases, he wasn't. And then all of a sudden, the gap that used to be there just got whittled way up. And now here we are, trying to figure out what we could do, you know. Madam Chairman, I believe I would like to move that we table this issue until our meeting in 2 weeks and ask administration to work with the sheriff and bring us a proposal of establishing a rate of pay for the position of undersheriff that can be advertised to fill this position. I think it's critical that we fill this position as soon as possible, but I want to make sure that we do it correctly. So I would ask that we come to the board. We'll be back here in 2 weeks with a recommendation of establishing a set range of salary for the undersheriff. And along the way, during the budget process, from now through the end of the year, we're going to look at those other positions that are non-contract throughout the county. You know, Nate's exactly right. We've made a lot of really good decisions here in the last year about how we're going to treat county employees. And it's just going to take a little bit of time to get all those wheels and teeth in the cogs. But I think we've made a lot of great decisions with that. But I think we do need to specifically address the position of undersheriff, and I'd like to move that we table that until next week, or 2 weeks from now, and for a formal action at that point.
Okay.
Support.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Willock, supported by Commissioner Gorfulet, that we table this item. Is that the correct way to do that, even with the motion on the floor? That's the right? Okay?
That's cleaner than pulling it, right, Chris?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Do you have discussion on that?
A question for
ahead.
the sheriff. With your job posting for undersheriff, was the salary listed in the posting?
It was posted on the county's website. I can't tell you right now if it was. Typically, they put the salary range in there, but I can't tell you for sure because I don't have that posting.
Okay.
I do know that, I'm quite sure that applicants from within the sheriff's office went to the wage scale for the non-contract exempt employees to find out what it would be.
Do you have no applications, 10 applications, or where do you stand at this point with applicants to go through?
Well, we have a number of applicants from within and without, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And during the process, these questions arose having to do with the compensation and the difference in compensation. So we've kind of put it on hold at this point until we get this resolved. And a couple things. I'm okay with tabling this. I'm happy to give the information. I'm quite sure, but my numbers are correct. Without,
I'm sure they are
if
too.
you want
I
me
just
to
can't see 'em.
divulge the increases that have been talking about, I have that slide to show you what the differences are. But I only picked, years ago, it used to be 11%, 11.3% difference. The M to the M2 increase is 11%. So that's just why I went with that number, using that because I thought that would be simple. And your administrator and I have had good conversations about this as recently as about 4:40 this afternoon, and I'm happy to sit down and talk. The point being is that for many years, there's been two different ways to establish salaries for people in our office, and it's just gotten out of whack. And this table or this chart shows you what has happened. And all we're trying to do is get back to a reasonable separation. Mr. Mayor said 10 to 15%. This is 11. The lieutenants are 15. Maybe it's 12, maybe it's 15, but it doesn't fit on the county's non-contract exempt scale. So you'd have to create a new designation of M47 or something so that that percentage increase goes in there. I do know that with the, this is what you can't read, but
Right. I can't read
the M2 and the M classification includes 4 county employees. There are 4 county employees in that. I can't speak to what they do and who they supervise and what those discrepancies are, if any, and have they changed over the years with, for example, I'm guessing the next biggest department would be the health department. So, you know, to their supervisors, are they 15 or 20% over, or are they 2% over who they supervise? No idea. But I do know that those 2 classifications affect 4 people.
So are you gonna have to repost this position when there's a different salary put to this here position, and then is it gonna be another 30, 60 days?
No, I don't think, yes, I think to be fair, if, for example, you have increased tonight, had increased this back to where it was, an 11% difference between a captain and the undersheriff, yes, we think it's fair. That's a pretty substantial amount of money. At the top rate, it's $7,107. So we think that, to be fair, yes, we would repost this. Some may have said no, for the increased responsibility of that job and the work that has to be done, I'm not doing it for a couple thousand more than I'm making right now. But each person has to decide that on their own, whether within or without. So, yes, we probably will if it's increased substantially enough, but that hasn't been determined yet.
Okay. So Tom? do you
I
have
just
one more
looked at the
comment?
website. It looks like it's off now. It's not showing there, so.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows.
Okay.
There's no number to look at.
Okay. All right, so we're voting on tabling this for the next meeting. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And that will come back to us. Okay, we're moving on to the Health Department. Well and septic permit scanning project.
So move.
Who was the support? Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Johnson. Now we will hear from Dan.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening. Dan Thorell, Environmental Health Director, Health Department. So I'm up here just talking about the scanning project. And we've been wanting to do this for a really long time. And really, we only see benefits to this. Our staff, clerical staff right now, spend an extreme amount of time retrieving records. We get calls from contractors, realtors, homeowners, just looking for their well records, septic records, septic pumpers daily. You know, we get these calls, and they spend between 10 and 15 minutes, you know, per record, just finding it, going through the file, scanning it out, sending the emails, you know, for each one of these records. So we're estimating that it costs about, in staff time, about $24,000 a year to just retrieve these records. There's a couple great benefits to doing this project. Number one, it's a benefit to the public. because we're gonna have a web interface where basically you can just go online, anybody can, and type in their information, their address or their tax ID number, and be able to pull up their well and septic records. And they can print them off or do what they want with them. And that would, basically, the staff would not have to retrieve them, and they can be able to search as they want to. There's a great amount of support with the clients that we deal with on a regular basis between the contractors, realtors and whatnot that have been wanting to see this for a very long time. Another benefit to it is that the records are preserved. Right now, they're just in paper format in a big file room. God forbid something happened to it, roof collapse or water damage or a fire or something, we would lose all those records. So by scanning them, we would preserve that record, forever. So does anybody have any questions?
Yes, Cheryl.
Okay, so you're going to start this, if the contract is
September
approved.
30th.
I'm sorry?
September 30th.
Yes, you're going to start this month, but once you've done it, I assume it's a contract for a term. It has a start date and an end date.
Right.
And when is the end date?
Well, I believe, so, starting the contract before the end of the fiscal year, we're trying to best utilize our grant funds and well and septic permit revenue.
Sure.
Before the end of the fiscal year, and then we have it actually budgeted going into 2019 for Phase 2. Phase 3 would likely be maybe towards the end of the year, depending on how the year goes, or maybe into the next year. The way that we plan on doing this is township by township, because we can't send out all of our records, at once, because we're still getting calls in for record retrieval. So let's say we send out Acme Township, it takes 2 weeks for them to scan it in, basically, is what they're telling us. We can still retrieve records, it just takes 24 hours. So we can contact them if we need a record. They will get back to us, they'll get us the record, they'll send it via email within 24 hours. That's part of the contract. So,
Okay, I guess.
does that answer your question?
It doesn't. My question really is, when this scanning process ends, let's say you do it alphabetically and you start with Acme and you work your way through the.
Yes.
Okay. End up with Whitewater. Okay. So then everybody's scanned in. But now we're back to Acme, and in the meantime, there've been 200 new septic well
Okay.
permits.
Yes,
So
I understand, I
that's
understand
my
your question now. So we have a scanner in the office, okay? So going forward, we are gonna scan all the new records. This is more or less scanning all the old
Sure.
record as an archive.
Sure.
Okay, so going forward, we'll have a plan. We'll be able to free up a lot of staff time from record retrieval, from all the old records, to be able to focus on scanning new records going forward. So
Okay.
as we final out permits, we'll be able to send them.
So the plan is, even though we could have been scanning for the last X number of years, we will be scanning going forward.
Yes, that's the plan.
We're not going to get behind on it and then come back again and have to do
Right.
this again.
Yeah, the hope is, we're gonna free up a lot of time from not having to retrieve all these records all the time.
Sure.
So we'll be able to focus on scanning in everything new, so.
Anybody else? Ron?
And the $31,000 is going to scan all your records.
That's the contract that we have.
Okay.
Sonny?
Okay, so, and I tried to beat the number. $31,000 will do it. You have $15,000 budgeted in your 2018 budget?
No, we don't have that currently budgeted. We have
Because it says
that-
included in the budget $15,000, so that's why I'm.
Oh, I think it was, okay, it was included in the 2018 budget, but we also are able to utilize leftover grant funds and well and septic permit revenue that was underutilized. So, yeah, basically it is.
So basically, we have at least half of the money budgeted in the 2018 budget between reserve, leftover grant money and the 15,000 that was budgeted, and we're not going to get this thing finished before we're into the 2019 budget anyway.
No.
So, if we make a commitment to move forward with this project, the only thing that we would want to do is make sure that we budget at least a portion of another $15,000 in the 2019 budget. Wendy's sitting back there shaking her head, so she's not in agreement with that. Well, that's what I'm reading.
Yeah, you have to come to the microphone and can you
That's what I'm
clear it up?
reading, too.
Yeah, that's the way,
That's the way it's written.
written in the
Proposal.
proposal, is that we do have the rest of it budgeted for the 2019 budget.
Yeah.
Right. Well, he was talking
It
about
said in
20
here, in 2018, you still had 15,000 for this.
Yeah, so we need an additional.
Right, but you have 15,000 of it budgeted in 2018, and the other 15,000 will have to be budgeted in 2019.
I think,
That's what I'm reading. Or that's the way I'm reading it anyway.
That's the way
I think
read
it's
it.
budgeted in 2019. But what we're doing is we're towards the end of the
Maybe
fiscal
you've
year.
seen a 2019 budget. I haven't even seen a draft of any
No.
department's numbers for
Yeah.
2019 yet.
That's the plan, is utilizing the leftover funds before the end of the fiscal year, grant funds and whatnot, try to use it the best way possible for the programs going forward and for this project. For the end of the fiscal year 2018, and then going into the next fiscal year, that's the way our state grants work with our DEQ and grants and whatnot for well.
Are those October, the state fiscal years?
Yeah, the state, that's where I think we're getting a little confusion here, is because we have the state fiscal year, and then
Yes.
we have
Which starts
our
October.
budget year, so that's where the confusion lies. So going into the fall, that is budgeted in the state grant programs as far as
The
scanning.
The 15,000 you're talking about is basically 2019 fiscal year for the state? Is that what you're saying, or?
Right.
Okay.
So,
So,
I'm sorry.
it's still in this calendar year.
Well, that's right. I'm just looking at this request, and it says that the total cost is $30,862.88. Included in the budget is $15,000.
So where's the other 15
I'm under the
coming from?
assumption that you've already budgeted 15,000 of it, so you're looking at moving forward.
Dean?
You're gonna need additional 15,000 in the next budget.
Dean's got
Well,
some.
I know that the health department would not commit to this if they didn't have the funds. They are dealing with a state fiscal year, and based on the construction activity, your permit activity, they have to use or spend our local money. So they're probably going to do half of this work by September 30th, and then they'll do the balance of the work in our fiscal year, which is the state's next fiscal year. But they could actually carry some of this over into our 2019 budget year. If they've looked at this and if they can afford to do this, I have no concern as to how we may need to amend the budget, but I would guess, and the next item will kind of maybe be a similar discussion, but they're in a situation where, based on their septic and well permit revenue, to maximize the state grant for these programs, we need to spend more money. And this is one of those things where they have a need to digitize those records, and it's a good use of the funds that we have to maximize the state grant revenue, which has to be done by September 30th.
Yes.
And I don't know the specifics, but I do know that they'll manage it over probably 2 state fiscal years and possibly into our 2019 budget year as well.
Question.
Okay, Dan had his hand up, and then we'll go to
What I'm
Cheryl.
hearing is that you're basically projecting that we're not going to have to take extra money out of our county funds. You can do it through fees and grants. That's the
Right.
projection.
We will just be managing it within.
Yeah, and I believe them.
Okay.
So do I.
And I
Okay.
also wanted to add that a couple years ago, we actually paid for the IT department to create the interface to bring our records to be digitized, which is why we hadn't scanned them previously. That took a while, actually, with some changes in the IT department. So
Yes.
we're finally to the phase of being able to scan and have them ready for the public.
Cheryl?
Well, I guess mine is more of a comment than a question, but, the next item is also from the health department, and it's to buy a new truck, and it has to be done by September 30th, again, in order to utilize grant funds and and, you know, the fiscal year and septic fees, et cetera. And, you know, it just prompts the question in the back of my mind, how much are we charging for well and septic fees if we can just, you know, we're at this point of the year where we have to spend money? I mean, should we look at our fee structure and maybe not charge so much? I mean, we got to spend money, you know? Got to spend it or lose it. And I don't think we should be running surpluses like that myself, but that's just my perspective.
I mean, it's always, we don't know what's gonna happen one year to the next. You know, if we have a very busy construction year, we're spending a lot of, it's not something that you can hire somebody for, you know, projecting that and then, you know, deal with it later. So we're always kind of looking backwards. And it seems like when we do have those overages, it's not enough to hire somebody because of the amount of work that's going on. And I think our fees align with what other counties are charging and things of that nature, and they reflect the work that's being done. It's more of a matter of the amount of work, the amount of permits that come in when construction is going, you know, through the roof and everything. We
Like
end
it
up-
has been here for years now.
Yeah, for at least since, you know, 2013, and we have added a little bit of staff, but, you know, we have dealt with this. And we've been able to leverage it or use it to, you know, replace infrastructure type things like trucks and do things, you know, hopefully do
Well-
this scanning project to make it more efficient for. our-
Dan, I guess
business.
all I would encourage you to do is to look at the fee structure, and I know it's probably, you know, a lightning bolt will come out of the sky if we ever thought about lowering our fees. But if it were possible, because we don't need to have them be as high as they are, you know, wouldn't that be something?
Well, one of the things you have to remember is part of the fee structure for a well and septic permit involves being able to track that septic permit or well permit 20 years from now when somebody's trying to figure out they're remodeling their house and they don't know where their septic tank is.
Sure, and they're doing the scan,
You
and
know,
so that'll take care of that.
My son recently in Grand Rapids was trying to deal with some issues with his septic service, and the courthouse or wherever the records were sold had a flood.
Sure.
And there are no records. He has two completely separate drain fields on his lot, and they're not connected together, and they
Sure.
don't know when they were put there.
Sure, and I
You
think
know,
the
so the
scanning
scanning
project
is
is
a great
awesome.
idea.
That's a great idea, it's a great use of money, and all I'm saying is, if we can buy trucks and we can do other things, you know, I mean, 3-4 years ago, you guys weren't buying trucks, right? You weren't buying scanning systems, and it was tighten your belts, and no, you know, we're cutting programs and whatever, and now that things are coming back a little bit, I'd just like us to maybe think about not going crazy, right? Well, you laugh, Dan, but don't.
No,
isn't
I
that-
think you're right.
Right down your alley. I mean, if we're charging so much that we've got a lot of extra money to get rid of, let's look at whether our fees could be reduced. That's all I'm saying.
I will add that, you know, we haven't raised fees in, you know, 2 or 3 years, and when we did raise fees, it was a modest, you know, 2%.
So it's volume.
It's volume.
It's volume.
I mean, it is. And it, you know, the way it goes, I mean, it goes up, it goes down. You know, when is the next downturn gonna be? You know, who knows, but.
Let us know if you get a hint on that, will you?
Well, and-
We'll let you know when the permits start going.
And Ron
down.
can tell you that they'll apply for well and septic permits for a tract of houses or whatever, and they may not build that house for a couple of years, but they still have the well and septic permits in place.
Sure. They're good for a couple of years.
Right, Ron?
We got a few of them. Got a few in advance.
Absolutely. And every contractor, developer does that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There you go. Thank you very much. Stay there. We'll talk about the purchase of an environmental health truck.
Okay.
Same like an ice cream truck?
Nope, not even close to the same as ice cream truck.
Not an ice cream truck, is it?
No.
No.
That'll be fun, though.
What is the truck used for? Because since 2005, you've only put 82,000 miles on it.
The truck that we're replacing?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, we basically average about 10,000 miles a year for a vehicle, and actually in that one, we'd average a little bit less.
Quite a bit less.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I
you
mean,
know,
that seems
we
like
have,
almost a new truck. I mean, are you buying it because you have money that you need to get rid of? I mean,
well, it's used.
82,000 miles for a lot of us, that's almost a virgin. I mean, that's.
Right. Well, what we're dealing with
Right?
these, it's more the age of the vehicles, and what we're finding is we're having to do a lot of repairs and whatnot with these 2005 Colorados, and we've been solely replacing them, you know, as we could, you know, every year, trying to smartly utilize the leftover, or not leftover, but extra grant funds that we have because of this, you know, boom economy that we're going through right now with extra.
2005, so those had that 5-cylinder engine in them?
Yes, yes.
I think
Yeah,
we just
I mean, getting-
replaced one last year, didn't we? Didn't we just replace one last year?
We did. We've been trying to replace them as we go. Construction Code did the same thing. They've not been a very good vehicle as far as maintenance goes. We spend a lot of money on them.
So moved.
Sounds like a great idea.
Support, but
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner
even
Johnson.
though it doesn't have a lot of miles, a lot of things on there have a lifespan of gaskets and, you know, all this stuff that just wear out. Actually, in some ways, the less miles you drive vehicles, the worse it is, so.
Well, and those 5-cylinder engines required a lot of work. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but it didn't quite come to fruition.
You'd think for 10,000 miles, you can call Uber, though. You know, just,
Ron?
And, when
She's already
Have
when you were here regarding the animal control vehicle, you had multiple estimates. Here you have one estimate because it's my deal.
Right, right. And I found out that we didn't, when we did that with the animal control vehicle through the My Deal one, we did have, I think, 3 different estimates on there. Because it's the My Deal state contract site, only one estimate is required. We worked with the same dealership last year and had a positive experience. So we're just basically going with the same one that we did last year.
It doesn't take anything more than just a little bit of time to get that second and third
Sure.
quote regardless. I'm just not comfortable with the My Deal, never have been, unless it's a purchase that needs to be done immediately. And with the kind of time you obviously had to get this quote, I would have expected, you know, checking out other vendors, so.
Yeah, we do, I mean, you go to the website and it has them all listed and, you know, they are fairly comparable. I mean, you can pick from Ford, you know, GMC, Chevy, Dodge. And like I said, I mean, because it's the My Deal site, state contract vehicles, there was not the policy requirement, purchasing policy requirement to have 3 bids. Now, this was more or less like a time thing, trying to put it together quickly. But I would be happy to do more research and give you, you know, a couple extra quotes.
Well, kind of what Cheryl has said earlier is, it's hard for me to come to grips with, it's a time thing, all of a sudden, that we need to buy a new truck.
Well,
I think
we-
you need to realize environmental health this summer. We've had transition of soil erosion.
Right?
We're down, we had things with animal control, and we've also had accreditation. We just finished up a few weeks ago, and we've got several new staff that are getting oriented and trained in. So it's been a very busy year for the environmental health.
Right, but
And our finance person is the one who does these, and she's following the county policies. If we're changing the policy, then I guess we need to know as departments, but we're following the policy, we're leveraging the dollars, our local dollars that come from the fees and our grant dollars to the best of our abilities. We're not using general fund dollars for these purchases.
Right. Understand.
And for some reason, I seem to remember, even when we've gone out to bids, that we've used, I believe, the same dealership, because I think it's been some of the
We end
better
up coming back
prices.
to my deals.
Yeah.
Prices are as good as any of them. And
Tom?
we never get within the 5% local match.
Tom?
Whichever dealer we go with, is that somebody that's near here geographically? Are they close to Traverse City, or?
This one, you know, oddly enough, there's no Traverse City dealerships on the My Deal website.
So you buy a vehicle from somewhere else, do you get it serviced locally?
We go through Traverse City Fleet Repair for our service,
Okay.
which is located on South Airport. So
Because
oil
the-
changes, tire rotations, anything else that's, you know, outside of warranty.
So for a warranty item, you'd have to go back to the original place, or?
No, you can take it to any
Any
GMC
GMC
dealer.
No, that's kind of what I'm just getting at. I know the answer, so. yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, because you wouldn't want to necessarily go back to where you bought it from to get the service done, because it's not local, so,
Right.
yeah. I just want to make sure that's what's really going on.
Yes.
Because you would get the standard maintenance done by one company, and then you'd get the warranty stuff done by another company, and it would be here, or you wouldn't be
Right,
going
it
out
would
of
be
town.
here. No, we don't want
Yeah.
to travel and do that.
Yeah, well, that's why I just wanted to be sure of, yeah.
Yes.
Because it sounded like when I, myself, I bought a car, I searched on the internet and I got several offers, you know, just for them to sell to me. I saved quite a bit of money, but then I take my car to Williams Honda to have the service done, and they don't have any problem with that at all, so, no.
Anybody else? Do we have a motion? We don't have a motion yet.
Yes, you do.
We do? We do.
Gord Follett and seconded by Klaus.
Okay, we do. Anybody else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Thank you. We're down to county administrator. Wake up, Nate.
I'm here.
The cannon.
Yeah, so.
This is fun.
It's a very interesting question to have. So one day, a gentleman walked up to Samantha in the clerk's office and said, "I want to buy your cannon," essentially. And the family has a connection to the USS Sabine. A family member was on that vessel. That vessel has historical relevance as being one of the last steamships in operation in the Civil War, and was actually engaged, I believe, in battle in the Civil War. So when the senator provided this, I think it was 1910, through a program, I think by the Department of War, I'm not sure if that exists anymore or not, but they were allowed to disperse these cannons around the state, and Traverse City received that cannon. And it's been sitting there since then, and it was remonumented in 2008. And we have very little record of how we got the cannon. There's no agreements, what we can do with the cannon. But the gentleman is serious. He's sincere about his interest in the purchase. And we've done some research, but not a lot of legwork, honestly, in terms of how we would go about constructing a sale agreement if the board would even entertain that. So during the investigation stage, I contacted Mr. Childs, and he said that cannon's been here as long as he has been here and doesn't know any agreement existing, but does know that Sheriff Canfield got in trouble because he fired it, and it almost hit the houses across the street.
So it is still fireable?
I think they plugged it after that.
Okay.
Made it inoperable, probably wisely.
Yes.
So I just want your, I guess, some direction by the board. I don't want to put this gentleman off too much longer, but I also don't want to dedicate a lot of staff time into researching the ability to sell this cannon. Personally, I don't know that I would do it, but
You personally what?
What do we think?
I don't know that I would do it.
I don't want to sell it.
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Don't
Bob?
sell it.
No,
Sunny?
I'm
We're-
opposed to selling it. so,
Yeah,
yeah.
Let's go with Sunny and on down. Go
Well,
ahead.
as you may have read in the notes that I think Nate sent you about the cannon, or at least he sent them to me, I was quite involved with the research and finding where the cannon came from back in 2007, 2008, and the rededication of it. I was county board chairman at the time. And, he's right. It came off from the USS Sabine, the last steamship ever commissioned by the United States Navy. It did serve during the Civil War. The captain's house, wheelhouse for that ship is still a residence in downtown Boston.
Cool.
The cannon, how it ended up here, I don't know. A U.S. senator donated it to Traverse City, to to this community in 1910. You know, it's been sitting here for over 108 years. I don't know why we would have any discussion about having it moved somewhere else.
I thought for a second you were going to say you were here when they had it.
I'm not quite that old.
Dan?
Well, I don't think we can sell it. How else are we going to defend that side of the courthouse?
Exactly.
So,
Tom,
I'm
what do
voting
you
against
think?
it. Yeah.
Well, the Department of War was replaced by the Department of Defense in 1946.
Mhm.
Just for a little history on that. And I would like to keep the cannon where it is, but it would be nice if the next time there's any type of a ceremony that we include that family and notify them.
That's a good idea. And
No.
with your blessing, I will send this gentleman a letter thanking him for his interest and his family serving on the Sabine, and that the board has politely declined
I don't
any
think we need an
interest.
official vote or anything. It's pretty clear that
Okay.
nobody wants to do this.
The
Okay.
I think
senior
if the ship
center-
still exists, we ought to get it and put it in the front lawn.
Wheelhouse is a residence in downtown Boston.
We should fortify,
I mean,
yes.
along those lines, if you wanted to have a proclamation or something and bring them, you know, to have a little ceremony in front of the cannon, you know, I don't know what that would be worth for them, but, you know, might be something, so.
I will offer that as well.
Okay.
We have a tentatively scheduled joint board meeting with the city to discuss the senior center.
Mhm.
This has been a topic that we've been discussing over the last several months, and we have received updated quotes. This has been going on since 2000, this discussion. And the discussion lies as to what we do with the senior center. Do we remodel it, or do we rebuild it? And I think this board has actually talked about this before. So there has been an updated costing or cost estimate of a rebuild and renovating the senior center. And renovations, the estimates go from $900,000 to 1.1 million, and rebuilds go from $945,000 to 1.6. So in July, staff met with the city. We had a joint discussion with Chris Erickson and Lori Wells of the senior center. And fairly unanimously, it was agreed that we should really focus on rebuilding in the existing site. Since then, we've been trying to have this discussion about can we get together as boards to move forward in the process, because there has to be an agreement reached. The agreement current won't be sufficient for the new relationship. So we'd like to have a joint meeting on the 26th with the city to discuss this and have a presentation by the senior center to the boards, displaying what they want, what they have done to this date, and what they expect to come in the future.
Okay, and refresh what our ownership interest is.
The city owns the building, and we manage the operations.
They own the building and the land.
Correct. The land is parkland.
But the
The
operations of
city
the senior.
owns the land as
Yep.
parkland.
That's correct.
And they own the building.
They own the building, but the senior center is operated under our Parks and Rec department.
And we have,
Back a number of years ago, we had a significant discussion about, okay, if we were going to build a new senior center, should it be there? And there were people within the city that were very adamant that it had to stay there.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You know, I'm not sure that I always agreed with that decision, but
Don't fight it.
under no circumstances am I prepared to spend $1 million on renovating
Yeah.
that old building whose foundation is collapsing underneath it. You know, I just
I
won't
was just
do
gonna
it.
say, who made the decision to renovate rather than rebuild?
Well, it was an interesting discussion. I don't remember the details.
No,
of
but I'm just
who
saying
all
if-
was involved, but
Are we allowed to be a part of that conversation?
well,
That's what they're asking for the 26th of September, that we will be part of that
The 26th
conversation.
meeting
That's the
is to
issue.
make
That's
sure
the
that
issue.
we are
That's the
part of that thing.
Yeah.
Because when the countywide millage was passed to operate the senior center network, whatever we're gonna call it, then all of a sudden the county took a direct control of the operations of them. Up until that time, we really did not. It was a city-run facility, it was city-run, and city paid for it. But once we passed countywide millage to operate senior center,
Okay.
the senior center network, then
I just think when we have the conversation, it's gonna be really helpful if we have a playlist so that we don't get into any territorial, you know, I mean, I don't want somebody from the city saying you can't do that because that's outside your purview and vice versa.
Mr. Forsythe has been involved with their attorney as well to draft an initial agreement. And the city actually had a study session where this was presented to them, and they're supportive of the concept as well. So it shouldn't be that controversial, but you'll have a point-by-point analysis of what has been done, what's going to be done, and what we agree on currently.
Right, but if they're saying that it's gonna be a renovation.
No, they
No,
were saying
that-
they
no.
wanted to rebuild too.
They're on the
Unit-
rebuild
They
team
want to
now.
The
rebuild.
city
Yes,
staff
now
and
they
I
do.
believe the city commission
Okay,
has
I misheard
moved in the
you.
direction.
I think the new decision is moving toward rebuilding
That is-
instead of renovating.
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
tell you
That is
the
correct.
old
Okay.
decision was
Yes.
to renovate.
This board has not had an opportunity to engage this discussion.
Right.
So let's go with Tom and then Dan. Tom, you had a
Well,
comment a while ago.
I raised my hand before it became clear that
Oh, okay.
we don't have any ownership in the property, the real estate there.
Right.
So they would like us to participate by helping pay for a new building, and I think that that's kind of complicated, but it does kind of open the door for, you know, maybe at the Civic Center, the city takes over some of the weight of carrying the Civic Center, or any other county park that's in the city, you know, that there be some kind of cooperation there. But on the face of it, you know, spending county money on a city building on city property just begs lots of questions. But I do think that they should keep it there, that they should build maybe even a larger building than, you know, what $1 million pays for, because I think that's probably a low figure, not even in the middle. A two-story building on that site would look very nice, but it's still the city's building. It's their property. And however we can cooperate to make the senior center better, I'm supportive of that. I mean, I was in the senior center just in the last couple of weeks, and there was a meeting that had, I wasn't invited, but I went anyways, between some of the people that are, you know, promoting, you know, the senior center. The mayor was there, the city manager was there, and no one from the county was there. And what was really interesting is that they were talking about getting money from us. So that's what happened. I was at the meeting. So I do support the, you know, senior center being a nicer place. It's a beautiful site. You couldn't ask for a nicer site. But the only thing that they've done recently to make it better is that one of the carpet companies in town replaced the carpeting because it was in such poor condition.
It's dangerous.
But just the physical layout of the building is really obsolete. You know, the floor plan itself is obsolete. The way people have to go, to get from one place in the building to another, they have to go through the great room in the middle, and it just doesn't really make any sense. So trying to rehabilitate that building, it seems pointless, really, to spend money on something like that.
Okay.
But to spend money on a new building, the city's building, is definitely interesting conversation to find out how that would work, you know, with the county putting money into it. I don't know of another example that's like that. Well, there's always this building. The city
But they own
has
25% of this
Yeah, that's
building.
right. So maybe, you know, maybe that's where we're headed. Maybe the buildings that the county is in the city need to be shared in ownership. So
Dan?
that might benefit us, actually, so.
Dan?
I guess I'm asking that question is, does the city want us to help? Right now, they're the total owners of the building and the property. Do we pay rent to them?
Yes.
Okay. So what are they asking us? They're asking us to put money into the new building? Are they, or do you know?
There has not been those discussions to point by point, but there is funding from the millage. They're aware of that. There is funding that the Board of Commissioners has set aside for furnishings. They're aware of that. They know that due to the low amount, or the low estimates that came in, that the liability financially is minimized by these numbers. So we have to do a financial analysis to determine what the cost above the millage amount would be.
We can use millage money for this?
That is something that we're going to have to do an
Okay,
analysis on,
likely.
but that's been talked about, yes.
So would it be better to have administration meet first, come up with some suggestions about how we do this, rather than having the two boards try to hash it out. It's gonna be a zoo.
Well, but I think.
Well, try not to have it be a zoo, but.
Yeah.
I think it would be important that the two boards come up with a unified vision of what they would like it to be, I think. I think that's important, because one thing we have to remember when we talk about these type of facilities, and we talk about service to citizens, city residents are still county citizens. So we have to include them, when we talk about county residents, we have to include city residents also. And I think it's important that we come up with a unified view of what we think the senior center needs to be. And I think if the two boards come up that, and acknowledge that the facility we have is inadequate, it's outdated, it's whatever we're gonna call it, then we can jointly direct staff to come together and develop a plan of how we build a better facility.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it'd be nice to have some, like you're going into a buffet, you've got these choices, or this menu, these different things we could possibly do, and have the two boards come up with those. That's pretty cumbersome for a big group of people.
I
wonder
think
if we
there's
could have
going to
some
be,
suggestions.
I think there will be a direction on that. There will be, the staff has met, and we believe that there needs to be a rebuild, not a remodel. This is what the contract or the agreement should look like. There obviously there's going to be discussions about that before it's all said and done.
And these are what our options are. We can
Correct.
buy, we can rent.
Correct.
I'd like to see that information.
You will.
That would.
I think they have 3 weeks to do that.
You will.
They're talking about September 26th, so that's 3 weeks away.
Well, as my memory recalls the previous discussion about this, the county board was pretty sure that they wanted to rebuild the senior center, and the city commission said they wanted to remodel the one they had. And that was the stumbling block, they just stopped everything. That was back probably early 2000s. It's been 10 years ago, at least.
So one of the major hitching points, and I'm new to this discussion, but one of the major hitching points, as I understood it, was just that the county didn't necessarily want to put a lot of funding into a building that the city owned. I think the staff has kind of wiggled their way through that discussion, and we have a direction together, and Mr. Forsythe is in the process of narrowing down the agreement with the city attorney to reflect what the county's interest would be in that. I don't think it's fair to say the county's going to use county dollars, millage or otherwise, and then turn around and pay rent necessarily to the city for our own building that we help build. So I think some of those issues may be worked out for you before that meeting.
Good.
And, but the city staff, county staff has met, and we believe that we should build a new building on that site. And we need this to be touched by you, so you can have an input on that with the city. But we will have recommendations for you, certainly. And the legal information, hopefully we can have that agreement completed by that point as well.
So that's going to be on the 26th,
26th. And it's going to have to be in the second floor,
over there.
I believe that, yeah.
Well, and that legal agreement will be for our consideration, obviously.
That is, everything is going to be for consideration.
Tom?
What was the price range again for a new building?
A rebuild was 945 to 1.6, and a renovation was 900 to 1.1.
Does seem a little bit on the low side for a new building.
We were surprised at the cost estimates.
Well, but again, it depends on what you were asking for pricing on.
And if you've seen the building, it's in rough shape. There's a lot of work.
The
to be done.
existing building is tough.
Oh, it's
No
terrible.
question.
Is there any kind of drawings, even a sketch of what
Yes.
they're
What they're proposing.
what they're wanting?
Is it going to be a two-story building? New one?
I think they have one-story sketches and two-story sketches. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss book.
So the bids have been not on one concept, just on,
Correct.
like, we're gonna rebuild, and
Oh, my goodness.
so that kinda needs to get narrowed down. It's hard to compare bids when you're looking.
Well, you have two-story, you gotta have.
Don't they have half of it's already, like $700,000 or something already saved for this?
There's a significant amount of money, I don't know what that amount is, but there is an amount of money in the fund currently from the millage. And the city does have some funding as well in their budget, or their funds. So I think what you'll see is there's going to be a small gap of funding needed, and we have discussed options of fundraising for the remaining, or just paying it outright through interest received on the millage.
If they
Not
can raise
interest, but-
over 600,000 for the pool, we need a Friends of the
Well,
Senior Center.
The point is that we need to move on.
Yes, we do.
Okay, this is an issue that's been kicked down the road for years, and the building is literally falling down.
It is.
Our seniors deserve better.
They do.
Many of us are
I'll be
knocking
ready
on
in a few
that
years for
door,
that,
and
so-
that's right, so, I mean, it needs to
Another
be done.
15 years, I'll be old
There
enough
you
to do
go.
it myself.
I'll go with you, Sonny.
I'm ready.
Not old enough now, Sonny?
So you don't need a
Okay.
motion or anything?
No.
It's
No,
I just
he's
wanted to
just
update
making
you
sure
on
we're,
that.
we're gonna put that on the
Okay.
calendar for the 26th, 5:30, right?
5:30.
5:30.
And don't forget, we have a planning session, or a joint session with the planning commissions. We've had, or planning chairs, we've had a fairly decent response to that for the 12th. Next week,
Of
September, at 5:30, and that is also in the training room downstairs.
So that's all of us.
Yes.
So
What
that's
is that?
next,
What? Huh?
I did
What?
not know about that. Wait.
The planning townships.
What date is that?
next
September
Wednesday.
12th?
5:30?
Yes.
Okay.
I will be here.
Carol?
Yes.
On that planning meeting with the townships, does that conflict with any township meetings?
No.
It
Right,
does
Chris-
for me, but meetings I don't normally make if we have,
Yeah.
I have,
Yeah, but I mean, even those people are going to be at their own meeting.
They don't always
Not
go
for
to their
the-
own
the-
meeting.
some of the.
Not the planning commission. We're talking about the planning commission, not the actual township.
Oh, okay, that was my question.
Yeah, the request,
No.
Yeah. There's no other planning commissions that have meetings that
we,
night.
we picked that date because that was the least interruptive.
Right.
Right, I figured you couldn't even find a date that wouldn't conflict with something, but.
No, it's hard.
And we've had a fairly decent response, to my understanding.
Okay.
And then so it's the townships, it's the city, it's
Why
the
did you pick the
villages.
How'd you
didn't
come
pick
up with
that
that date?
That's
How,
a,
we
It came
came,
up
we
with the
looked
date.
at the calendar
That was
and
least
looked for.
disruptive to anything else.
I didn't run it by the board.
well, we almost
did.
have a standing
We did.
study session, really, I mean, we
Every
have a
Wednesday,
regular
we're supposed to
meeting.
be setting aside every
Theoretically.
Wednesday
Yeah.
anyway.
We've
I
been
guess
lucky and
that's
not
the-
had
that's the
a
thing.
lot of
We
it.
have-
We say townships, but we mean the city and the villages too.
Yes.
Okay, and the tribe,
The other governmental units, they're planning commissions.
okay.
Okay. Moving on.
Last but not least for me, this is the 12th year for the TC Business News 40 Under 40. It's a very nice recognition of young people that are active in the community and doing a lot of good.
None of us are.
And our own
50 over
IT
50.
director, Ming Mays, was named as one of those 40 Under 40 this year.
Awesome. Good. Well deserved.
Yes.
You know, I
Definitely.
also saw that Jody Lundquist.
Yes, she did,
She
yes.
received
for
the honor
second
again.
time
Yes.
got on that, which,
Second time.
congratulations to her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, Ming. No old business, no new business. Now's our chance for second public comment. Yep. Both people in the audience say no. Commissioner and department reports. Sunny?
Well, I guess I want to express my extreme displeasure with community mental health.
What are they doing?
And
I'll tell 'em.
Real big dissatisfaction and disappointment. In May, they came to our ad hoc committee and talked to us about contracting two mental health professionals. In June, they fleshed out the program a little bit. In July, the ad hoc committee approved that, made a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. I brought that to you. As of this afternoon, we still have not seen a contract
Okay.
for those people. And I've spoken with Joni on multiple occasions about the contract, told her that I needed the contract. If you recall, the discussion was that we wanted the contract in place by September 1st. Today, by my watch, is September 5th, and we still don't have it.
Okay.
At one point in conversation, she made comment, well, they were going to try to get the draft to Captain Ritter. And I told her that no copy of a contract should go to Captain Ritter unless copies also went to county administration, and I would like to see one myself. I said, there's no reason for you to negotiate a contract with Captain Ritter unless the county has the opportunity to review that contract.
It's us they're
because
negotiating.
the contract is going to be with Grand Traverse County, not with Captain Ritter.
Right.
We have on multiple occasions scheduled meetings when that contract was supposed to be reviewed, and those meetings have all been canceled by Community Mental Health.
Okay. I'm the chair of Community Mental Health Board,
Well,
so I
you
will
know,
be on the phone in the morning.
I read Community
working
Mental
on that.
Health's minutes, and they talk all about how they're going to have this in place with Grand Traverse County.
And that's what I was told at that time.
And going to be a pedestal to
A model.
show what we can do
Mhm.
to our offer to our other counties. We are 3 months after the original proposal, and we have yet to see a draft contract.
Okay.
That is not acceptable.
No, it's not. And I will be on the phone in the morning, working on that. Yes, Tom?
Well, when we started this process, looking to work with Community Mental Health and Corrective Care Solutions and Dr. Conlon, we were looking at people who we'd already done business with, which seemed like a good start. But, if we have problems coming to a final answer, for the services that we would like to have for the jail, maybe we need to put it out as a RFP and look at some of the companies that do services for the State of Michigan Department of Corrections. I don't know who was giving services when Pugsley was open, but, that was in our county. And somebody might have been being contracted there, I would guess. But it goes back and forth with the Department of Corrections, not our story here, but their story. Whether they're offering things and doing it in-house or going outside for contracts. And, if you look at it over a period of time, maybe decades, you see that the swing goes back and forth, like whether the food service is private or whether it's done in-house, and, whether the nurses work for the state or they work for another company. It seems to change with the times, you might say. Whether there are private prisons or they're all run by the state. I don't think there's any private ones in the state anymore. But, so you can just sort of see those swings. There are people that are offering some of the services that we're looking for, that offer them to the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
It's not like it doesn't exist, and maybe we're going to need to do that at some point, is to request proposals so that we can move ahead and do the things we'd like to do to improve the services at the jail.
Dan and then Cheryl.
Okay, I talked to Marty, the city manager, today, and he asked me to mention to you and to the public that's watching that this Friday, State Supreme Court Justice Bernstein will be at the State Theater, and from 1 until 3, engaging the public there. You do need a ticket, and they're free, but you probably want to get them as soon as you can, because I'll bet it'll be sold out. So that's what he wanted me to tell.
Okay, I have that here too. You can get the information and I believe get a ticket on the State Theater website.
Good.
So, Cheryl? Thank you, Dan.
The Economic Development Corporation is meeting tomorrow morning. I think Nate's planning on attending that meeting. One of the issues that we're going to be talking about is funding for the EDC. And one of the things that we did at the EDC this year was come up with a strategic plan to move towards an EDO, an Economic Development Organization, rather than a EDC, with the goal ultimately being that an EDO would be operated by businesses, not by government, basically. So my question to you all for your consideration is, what role do you think we should play going forward in an EDC? Because once again, we are moving into a budget cycle. And so if the EDC is interested in having us fund a person, are we interested in doing that? Because of course we did that in the past. But I think it's, I wanted to, I don't want to just go to these meetings and just, be me. I want to be whatever you all want me to be. So, an economic development corporation, the goal through the plan that we came up with, the strategic plan, was in 2019 to have an EDO established, which would be probably 5-county, 6-county entity that would be funded primarily by business and industry. Okay? So I guess it kind of begs the question, do we want, as a county, to hire somebody in the short term? What do you want to do? Tom has an idea.
Well, I'd like to keep the county with the EDC, and maybe the two could operate together, but I think it's important to have a county EDC. I do. I think there may be interest in the city to move things like the brownfield and the EDC more towards the city, because they think that the city has some kind of ability to probably to get funding by having those organizations.
Well, they had
Yeah.
expressed an interest in that, Tom, back when Gene was doing those jobs, but they never came up with the money, so the
Right.
interest died very quickly. So now it's back in our court. So
Yeah,
the
I don't mind
question is-
funding somebody to run that. I'm not sure it's a full-time job, but.
Anybody else?
Are you saying this would be a full-time person?
I don't know what their vision is. I mean, the question is, how do you hire somebody part-time to do it? And, then they become a county employee.
Sonny?
Well, it's kind of like we've kind of circled again. The county operated the EDC, and then Networks Northwest took over and took over through the chamber, and they took over all of the EDC. The county got out. And then the decision was made that we were not encouraging economic development in our community well enough, so the county jumped back in
Year and a half ago.
a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
A little over.
Maybe 2.
Anyway, but we put together this committee. They're very gung-ho. They're, I'm all in favor of that. But, and the but piece is, they want to talk about nothing but high-tech type jobs, and the time that I spent on that board, I told them that, it's great to celebrate those 5 high-tech jobs that you are creating, but what are we doing to help Elmer's find the 40 truck drivers that they need? What are we doing to help the existing businesses that are here? I think that piece is still missing, and now you're talking about going to an EDO that envisions 5 or 6 counties. Well, that has no local control again. The idea of the reformation of the EDC, at least in my mind, was to do things to encourage the development, economic development within our community. But the tough piece for me was we spent a great deal of time talking about cubicles and second floor areas on Front Street, and we didn't talk about businesses. Yes, they're businesses, but from a county perspective, what tax revenue do I get from that business?
Well, and Sonny,
I
you
get-
just need to know that the
I-
strategic plan does not track with what you're talking about. The strategic plan talks about a multi-county entity, an economic development organization.
But see that, again, this is the circle thing. This is a change, because a year and a half ago, the idea was to, when the EDC was regenerated, it was develop economic development within our community. And we got into big discussions about, we can have this little office thing, and it's great to have those jobs, but truly, from a county perspective, they bring us no tax dollars. They hire 5 people, and then I hear about, but for every one of those $100,000 jobs, it takes 5, service jobs to support them. But again, where do you hire the 5 service people to do the job? Because every business I know is looking for help. I guess I guess we need to have a discussion somewhere along the way, and I don't know where the right forum is, what is our goal? What is the county's goal in economic development?
Well, and
So how
that's,
about if we talk about that, can we put that on September 19th, so we have time to kind of think about it?
I think that'd be great.
Can we do that,
because I'm
please?
trying to
Yeah, because
gather
nobody's really
some-
had a chance to think about it too much.
Right, and
It's
I
kind of
just
an on the
don't want to
fly.
go to the EDC
Nope.
and say, the county doesn't want to support this, the county does want to support this, I mean.
We'll put it on for September 19th. Can we do have a discussion?
Another thing I want
Yes.
to bring up is when we're doing, this often happens to this group, I'm as guilty of it as anybody. When we're doing commissioner
Reports, it kind of turns out to be
into
kind of a
an
roundtable.
item.
Yeah.
So I think we need to resist that, and put it out,
Yeah.
and find it on the calendar.
That's why I was kind of trying to
regularly.
interrupt.
Well, it took on a life of its own.
It
I was
did. That's
asking-
why I was-
I was asking for a simple up or down as far as
Yeah,
hiring
yeah,
someone.
yeah.
and-
But it happens a lot with us.
But that's
It
something
does.
that we kind of need to discuss a little bit more and think about a little bit more than on the fly, so. And so, rather than we should go, maybe Dan, with, at that time, suggestions for the next meeting.
Yeah.
So this is an agenda,
Yeah,
can be
good.
an agenda item for the next meeting, so,
Okay.
So is-
okay?
Is it fair to say that Cheryl and I can discuss this after the meeting tomorrow and bring it back as an agenda item?
Yes, for the
Very good.
19th.
Thank you.
Bob, do you have a commissioner or department report?
Yes, well, something that's been a long time in the making. Tomorrow at 3, the Coast Guard Monument dedication is happening downtown at the mini park down on Front Street. So I know
Okay.
there was a group that originally looked at putting a monument in place, and they had a lot of ups and downs, but it's finally completed. I think it was escorted today by the American Legion Riders, so it should be down there and
Tomorrow
What
at
time?
3.
3 p.m.,
You're gonna put-
1500.
You're gonna put a monument there?
Yes, it's already there.
It's already there.
Okay.
And that's at Front and,
It's at the corner of the
Right,
front parkway.
in that
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
Front
triangle
Division.
there, yes.
They've been, if you notice during the Cherry Festival, they were there
Yes.
with bricks and
Yep.
all that stuff, so.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Nate, do you have a date yet for the Community Justice, or Criminal Justice Coordinating Council?
I do not.
A key piece of moving forward with the whole jail discussion is the creation of that council. We've made all of the appointments, and I'm
Correct.
just trying to figure out where we're at with that.
Okay.
I can work with Chris to set that out.
Good, thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on. We have current job openings. We have continuous job openings for correctional officers, deputies, medical examiner, investigator part-time, seasonal law enforcement deputies in the Marine Division, and universal aides. We also have an opening, this closes tomorrow, for a health program coordinator, and closing on September 14th, an office specialist with the county clerk. Okay. We also have some vacancies coming up we do this in the fall, toward the end of the year, there will be vacancies on all of our other boards. And so we want to put it out there that there will be openings coming up on Parks and Rec Commission, Beta, the Board of Public Works, Veterans Affairs, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, the Road Commission, the Library, Farmland Preservation, Economic Development Corporation, Hospital Finance Authority, Community Mental Health, that will be for a primary consumer, and the Building Authority. So if anyone's interested in serving your community in that manner, if you could call our Assistant Chris Kramer in the office, it is 922-4797 if you're interested. And she will give you all the information that you need to apply for any of those. Okay? Anything else?
Since we're having a joint session with the city, could we include a conversation about the child care center as part of that?
Sure. We
Since
just,
we're going to be jointly
We
together.
have a dual study session with 2 topics? We can. I
uh,
think we could.
the survey just came back. I shared that with Commissioner Follett and Commissioner Mayer. They're still focused on a daycare for employees' children.
See,
And I know,
how did that happen? Because my vision, when I proposed this a year and a half ago, was for
Just
the
a daycare.
public. It was never intended
To have a
be an
vendor down there
employee
who is a
benefit.
daycare.
It was a daycare. It was
Yeah.
supposed to be like Central Daycare back in the day.
So we may be a little further apart on that than the senior center, amazingly.
Well, the good
We
news
can
is
do
we
it.
have a 78% ownership, so.
Yeah, so if you would like, I can push that to Mr. Colburn and ask that question.
I just see nightmares of dropping off kids, and we don't have parking as it is now, you know?
Maybe, but,
Maybe.
you know,
The-
Central is a nightmare too, because they're right on the alley, and they're also right on the river, and they made it work for about 40 years, so, you know.
And the concern expressed previously by this board was they did not, you don't want to subsidize that daycare so heavily.
Absolutely not.
The city has a little different version of that, so I think that we need to work that through a little bit. If you want to do that at the next meeting, we can do that.
Okay. Why not?
Why not?
We'll all be in the same room.
I'm just thinking, since we're already together.
Got it, yeah,
That's true.
absolutely.
Let's get it done.
I'll ask.
Could be a Zoom.
Okay, let's see. We do not need a closed session?
No, we not.
All right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.